France has been the world's second power for a long time. After the Charlemagne Empire, Paris always found itself on the back foot against the Arabs, the Italians, the Spanish, the English, the Germans, the Americans. When America created a global system, freezing geopolitics in place, France could only be a cog in the machine. The French kept most of their production in-house, protecting their domestic market. Their economy barely even Europeanized. The French military maintains a strong capacity for independent action. With the order's end, history thaws. Without the global order, the French economic model will still work. Paris maintains reasonably good working relationships with the Americans, the British, the Dutch, the Spanish, the Italians, the Germans, even the Russians. Their position is why most European treaties are signed in Paris. France is emerging as the only significant European power with a sustainable domestic system and no strategic entanglements, leaving it free to shape Europe in its own image and perhaps in lands beyond. France is a power due to a specific region, the Beauce. The Beauce's limestone-rich soils place it among the world's most fertile agricultural regions, and its surpluses have proven sufficient to feed all of northern France for centuries. The river Yonne cuts south to north through the Beauce's eastern half, bringing all the normal benefits of cheap transport to high-quality agricultural lands that are the recipe for success throughout the world. But the Yonne is no standard river. Some 67 miles downstream of the head of navigation at Auxerre, the Yonne empties into the Seine system just above the Paris metropolitan region. The Seine system web works about 280 miles of river frontage in France's northern lobe, connecting the Beauce's bounty to several population cores, including the capital. The Seine then drains into the English Channel, making France part of the hustle and bustle of the northern European plain. The plain is home to not just the French, but also the Belgians, Dutch, Germans, Danes, Poles, Lithuanians, Latvians, Estonians, and Belarusians before it merges seamlessly into the great wide opens of the Eurasian hordelands, home of the Ukrainians, Russians, Kazakhs, and more. Nowhere in the world are so many different ethnicities with their own countries crammed into a single geographic feature. Paris's location along the Seine near the far western end of the NEP guarantees the French a seat at any European table. Undeniably, it is the Beauce-Seine connection that makes France a quintessential northern European power, complete with all the wealth and capacity that appertain thereto. But as central to the French identity as Paris and the Seine are, they are not enough. Luckily, the French have more, much more. Just as the Seine makes France a power of northern Europe, the Rhone makes France a power of southern Europe. But unlike the busyness of northern Europe, there simply isn't very much competition down south. The Mediterranean basin's extreme aridity limits civilizational options. There are few places where the land rises sharply enough to wring some rain out of the dry air. Those locations bloom as a result, but that same sharp rise prevents local rivers from having the calm flatness required for navigability, and from that, national potency. France is the only power with Mediterranean frontage that's an exception. Undeniably, it is the Beauce-Rhone connection that makes France a quintessential Mediterranean power, complete with all the wealth and capacity that comes with that stature. Tickling the Beauce's southern edges flows yet another river, the Loire, the River of Kings. In many ways, the Loire Basin serves as France's window out of the old world, enabling it to be a player on a far larger stage than merely Europe. And these aren't even all of France's rivers. The Meuse enables the French to dominate much of Belgium. The Moselle is a tributary of a border river, the Rhine, that enables French influence into both Germany and the Netherlands. Follow the Rhone upriver, and one ends up in Switzerland, giving the French a clear path to the heart of Europe's supposedly neutral power. The Garonne is navigable all the way upstream to Toulouse, a mere 100 miles from the Mediterranean coast, increasing French influence over countries south, while also creating a river and road shortcut that negates the need for the long sail around Iberia. Even the arrangement of France's rivers encourages her onward. The navigable flows of the Seine and Loire are close enough together to cradle all of northwest France. Perhaps a better verb would be smother. Somewhat rugged regions like Normandy and Brittany would normally be too remote from the river zones to be assimilated easily and thus be likely to turn rebellious. Even the shape of France, in essence a knob near the end of the European peninsula, helps. France's frontage on the English Channel, Bay of Biscay, and the Mediterranean gives it a mild marine climate, far more typical of an island. Compared with the bulk of Europe, France is warmer and wetter, while also experiencing less extreme seasonal variations. With the exception of the highlands of the massive central, all of France is firmly temperate. France even has pretty good borders. On France's southern and southeastern borders jut the Pyrenees and Alps, both replete with peaks so sharp they have permitted little direct land contact with the Iberian and Apennine peninsulas throughout recorded history. Even France's borders on the invasion-happy corridor of the northern European plain are somewhat circumscribed. To France's northeast, a series of densely forested foothills push from the Alps nearly to the North Sea coast, making this Belgian gap the northern European plain's narrowest point. France's many rivers distribute the Beauce's bounty far and wide. They serve as arteries for commercial interests. They entrench the French national identity. They encourage power projection in three wildly different directions into three wildly different regions: the Channel and North Sea, the Mediterranean and the Middle East, and the Bay of Biscay and the New World. They shelter France in the most defensible position possible on the northern European plain, while still enabling the French to take advantage of all the opportunities the plain can provide. And as geography doesn't change, those opportunities have existed for a long time. The French have arguably the longest tradition of operating as a cohesive culture vis-à-vis their location of any people on earth. France's unique mix of geographies does more than make it special. The configuration of French lands makes it culturally sophisticated, economically aware, technologically advanced, politically robust, and diplomatically essential. It makes France rich, whether in the sleepy countryside or the city of light. It makes France involved in places as close as Bern and Brussels and as far away as Montreal and Saigon. It grants the French a deep understanding of how the pieces fit together and what levers need to be pulled to achieve this or that result. It makes France a superpower, and a durable one at that. In short, the place was ready to blow. Think of the virus of American democracy upon this system as less the systemic disruptor and more the proverbial straw. It got pretty ugly. The French Revolution didn't simply behead the royal family. Its subsequent terror introduced Western civilization to populism of the ugliest sort, mobs large and small literally burning down the ancien regime, complete with impromptu execution tribunals so prolific that there were occasional basket shortages because so many heads needed to be caught. Things like this happen when ossified cultural, military, and economic norms melt away in a few short months. What emerged from the detritus in the French terror's aftermath, however, wasn't simply a reborn France, but something fundamentally new: nationalist France. From a geopolitical point of view, nationalism's defining characteristic is its capacity to better harness national power. Medieval feudalism splits capacity among the royals, the nobles, and the peasantry, with loyalty within and among the three largely determined by a system of bribes and threats. It works, but is wildly inefficient. In contrast, nationalism fuses ethnic identity directly to a centralized governing system, both eliminating the middleman and making loyalty part of the governing rationale. Such organizational slimming funnels more resources, financial and labor, in particular to the one government that rules it all. Nationalism took root quickly, in no small part because France's rivers enabled the quick transmission of ideas. A single horrific bloodbath to annihilate the economic and political classes of the medieval order, and France was off to the races. The question quickly became what to do with all those newly concentrated resources. Nationalism suggests the answer. Because the nation-state is rooted in ethnicity, not everyone qualifies as people. Sitting not so comfortably on the other side of the 20th century, you probably see where this is going.